Equal exchange. Was it? By orphan account. When Aizawa woke up in the hospital, hooked to monitors and IV in his arm, he was confused, but happy that he got to live another day. Hizashi was there with red, puffy eyes, bottom lip split from chewing on it. At such rare moments, he was near silent, speaking, almost whispering. Shinso and the others from 1A were also there, all visiting him with gifts and wishing him well. It was sweet, but he couldn't help but feel somewhat empty, like he had lost something much more important. Once everyone besides Hizashi had left, he asked him the question he'd been holding back. "Where's the problem child?" The blonde suddenly froze, fiddling with his finger nervously, but not daring to say anything. There was a sense of unease. "Hizashi, where is Izuku?" Trigger warnings include death, blood, gore, and violence. The morning skies of Mustafu have always been lovely. A beautiful shade of lilac and pink falling. Morning skies of Mustafu have always been lovely. A beautiful shade of lilac and pink fading into blue like a watercolor painting of an artist in love. On days like this, when air pollution was just a little lower than usual, the brightest of stars could be seen even at the start of daylight. Yeah, it was beautiful and all, but if Aizawa Shota didn't get at least 2 shots of espresso in his system at 6 a.m., either he or someone from UA would drop dead before noon. Enjoying the skies could come a bit later. It was pretty quiet, 1 or 2 cars flying past occasionally, but otherwise only the sonata of birds following in his steps. The morning silence walking to the coffee shop had become a part of his routine, familiar and comforting. He'd stop occasionally to pet any feline that came within 2 meters of his reach, smiling almost unnoticeably as they purred and leaned into his hand. Maybe in another life he'd get to be a cat, lay around and do nothing. A scowl or frown marred Aizawa's face at all times, but whenever he came to visit this place, his tension disappeared like it was never there. Home Soul, the sign above the door read. It was a good name, for any soul was welcome there. A shelter for those who are lost. A place for his tired mind to rest. "Open!" Another sign hung a little lower on the door itself. Aizawa pushed the glass door and familiar sound of chimes swept through the nearly empty shop. The smell of cocoa and freshly roasted coffee beans hit him as he walked inside. Behind the register stood a kid, a green bundle of energy, always happy to help. Noticing the visitor, his eyes lit up with stars, and he turned around, almost forgetting his current task. The movement was a bit too sudden, and the glass he was cleaning nearly flew out of his hand. Thankfully, he caught it in time and placed it back in its place. But his cheeks were dusted pink from embarrassment. "Good morning, Mr. Aizawa," he greeted the older man with a bright smile. His little accident quickly forgotten in favor of talking with his customer. The kid was like a breath of fresh air after constantly fighting brainless villains and teaching ungrateful brats. "Problem child, you really are too polite. Didn't I tell you to call me Shota?" The pro-hero sighed fondly, but knew no matter how much he pleaded, the kid wouldn't listen. It was their daily little game. No can do. Mr. Aizawa is an adult and a cool hero at that. That would be too rude." The greenhead answered with a cheeky smile, but they both knew it was an excuse. The kid just loved to torment him, no harm intended. Plopping down on one of the chairs right near the register, which he might as well own now with how often he sits on it, he placed his card on the smooth marble tabletop and slid it towards the teenager. Wasting no time, Izuku took the card and swiped it, returning with their drink. It had been like that for a while. When the pro hero comes in the morning, the drink would always be ready for him. Your daily dose of triple espresso macchiato. He pushed the drink towards Aizawa, who grabbed it like a dehydrated man in the middle of the desert. Izuku disappeared for a few seconds before returning with his tray of sweet chocolate cookies, still slightly warm, taken out of the oven just a bit earlier. Seeing that Aizawa wasn't fast enough to chug down the entire drink yet, he sighed in relief. Izu, the pro hero, was about to complain, but he was shushed into silence. I most certainly know that you don't have enough patience to deal with Hizashi and make a breakfast. So be a good pro hero and eat the cookies I made you. The kid glared at him, and at that moment, Aizawa felt like he was getting scolded by his mother for skipping breakfast. A laugh ripped out of his chest unexpectedly. That kid was a really kind child. He somewhat reminded him of Oberon, that wild smile, crazy hair, his way of caring for everyone. It seems that Aizawa had gotten attached to yet another kid. You sure do know me well. I should be the adult in this situation, yet you are the one acting like a doting parrot. Aizawa snorted, amused at the situation. The kid seemed to hesitate for a moment before speaking, as if unsure if he should really say something. I think you are a great dad. I always feel safe and comfortable when Mr. Aizawa is near. And that stunned Aizawa into silence. He had always thought he was a failure at being a parent. Hell, he was barely raising Shinso. Hearing something like that from a child he barely knew, it was weirdly comforting. Maybe he did need this kind of reassurance. He just didn't know it. The kid always knew what to say. Thank you, problem child. He smiled faintly before looking at his watch. Although it seems I have to go now, or my class will probably burn the school down. Aizawa wished he was exaggerating, but that truly could happen with his group of idiots. Wait a second. Izuku stopped him for a moment, quickly placing the leftover cookies in a paper bag and giving it to the man. You should take these. You can always eat them later or share them with someone. Aizawa gladly took the snack with him, grateful to the kid. Thanks. I'll eat them at lunch. You don't have to make me something each time, though. Take some more time to rest in the morning instead. Izuku shook his head. It is no problem. Let's just consider it a thank you. Thank you? For what? Shoto was left confused. What is there to be grateful for? It's nothing. You should hurry before something really happens. The greenhead avoided this question, changing the theme. It was very obvious, but Aizawa didn't pry further. Not like he had time for that. With goodbyes said, the pro hero hurried to UA. It was very obvious, but Aizawa didn't pry further. Not like he had time for that. With goodbyes said, the pro hero hurried to UA with a bag of cookies in a good mood. Today was a good day, Aizawa concluded. Or maybe not. He was out patrolling like always, tying a few thugs here and there, but overall it was pretty peaceful. The occasional burst of warm wind messed up his hair, but he didn't have the capacity to feel angry at something so minuscule when the day was going so good. The skies were just as beautiful at night, something he never got tired of, no matter how much he complained about night work. A thought crossed his mind. The problem child would have loved searching for consolations. Shoving those sappy thoughts to the back of his mind, he continued with his night patrol. Shota was aware that complete quietness was not always the best, and his gut didn't fail him as something was launched at him from the darkness of the alley. Dodging whatever that was, he made some distance between himself and the other person. Behind him in the wall was embedded a half of scissors, stained in dried blood. "Do you think I'm beautiful?" A voice sounded from the alley. Moments later, a smiling woman came out of the shadows, awaiting his answer. It didn't take long to realize that the woman was villain, one who was imitating Kuchisake Onna, the myth of a slit-mouthed woman. He'd seen the aftermath of her presence. Her victims, men, were gutted to death, but women, their bodies were mutilated and their mouths were split open. A truly disgusting scene. A shiver ripped through his body. Eraser didn't waste a moment and attacked the woman, erasing whatever quirk she might have had. The woman panicked, probably having done no prior investigation before attacking him, and tried to shield herself with her weapon. A big pair of scissors. She snapped the blades at him, but he merely wrapped his scarf around one of the blades, disarming the woman. Using her confusion, he switched his target from the weapon to the woman, tying her up. It was a job easily done, and it was his mistake to let his guard down. He called Tsukauchi, deciding it was necessary to involve the detective in his case, and after a few rings, a tired voice answered. "Shota, what is it?" "I've caught the Kuchisake-on." Ha! Fuck! He was interrupted by a blade going straight through him. Fuck, 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 fuck. God damn, did it hurt. Even more so as she rooted out of him. "Aizawa, what happened?" Tsukauchi was immediately on alert, sensing that something was wrong. Fuck! She escaped. Not before spearing me like some quirk. Either someone thing with gravity control, or maybe she can only control the scissors. It hurt like a bitch. His head was feeling heavy as he slid down the wall. "On the way. Hold on just a bit. Damn it. Why now? Right, so." And with that, the call abruptly disconnected. He would have never thought he'd end up dying like in some dirty alley. What would Hizashi say? Shinso? 1A? His brats? What would Problem Child do all alone? He didn't know when he did it, but by the time he snapped out of his overthinking session, his phone was already on and calling Izuku. "Mr. Aizawa? Is everything all right?" Worry laced his voice, not expecting a late call. They exchanged numbers quite a long time ago, but a call this late was a first. "No, I'm sorry, kid." Aizawa was ready to say his goodbyes. "Where are you?" His voice was cold, unexpectedly so. "Shota, where are you?" he pressed on. "Two streets down from the shop," he muttered, feeling his throat hitching at the taste of iron. The call was disconnected, and Aizawa thought it was the end. He'd die alone like the stray cats he liked so much. Just a few seconds later, he heard heavy pounding and the sound of running. Green hair. "Izuku." His word came out broken. The boy ran up to him, tears in his eyes, and he dropped to his knees before him. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry," he rambled, clenching Aizawa's cooling hand. "Nothing to be sorry for," he dragged out, even if barely. The pro hero was too out of it to notice Izuku's face slowly changing from fear to acceptance as he muttered, "Everything will be all right. It's gonna be okay." Izuku clenched his freezing hand on the older man, a noticeable glow forming around their hands. "You'll be fine. You'll wake up, and Hizashi and Shinso will be there, waiting there for you. 1A2. Mm-hmm. Should ask, but at this point it was merely his subconscious talking. "Everything will be okay." Izuku groaned in pain as red bloomed through his shirt. "It's okay. Go to sleep." Aizawa closed his eyes, feel it falling into deep sleep, even as Izuku clung tightly to him. Watching as the wind on Aizawa's body closed up completely, Izuku let out a content sigh. Or maybe it was a pained groan. Watching as the wound on Aizawa's body closed up completely, Izuku let out a content sigh. Or maybe it was a pained groan? He didn't know anymore. Izuku closed his eyes and let his head fall against the pro hero's chest, listening as his heart beat steadily. He was alright. Everything would be fine. Aizawa will live, and that was enough for him. Tears gathered at the corner of his eyes, but he didn't let them fall. "You know, Shota." He talked, yet no one listened. No one at all. "Thank you. Really, I was left all alone, scared and confused, and then you came. You saved me from those hellish memories, pain and suffering. Talking with you about small things was always so interesting." I'd never even noticed how fast time passed when I was with you." His body shivered and jerked as sobs broke through his bodies. He couldn't hold back his tears. "Thank you. Thanks for letting such a person like me have such a wonderful life, Dad, even for a little bit. I love you, Dad." He choked out his last breath, a smile on his face, even as his eyes glazed over and his heart quieted down. When Aizawa woke up in the hospital, hooked to monitors and an IV in his arm, he was confused but happy that he got to live another day. Hizashi was there with red, puffy eyes, bottom lip split from chewing on it. At such rare moments, he was near silent, speaking, almost whispering. Shinso and the others from 1A were also there, all visiting him with gifts and wishing him well. It was sweet, but he couldn't help but feel someone empty, like he had lost something much more important. Once everyone else besides Hizashi had left, he asked him the question that's been holding him back. "Where's the problem child?" Blonde suddenly froze, fiddling with his fingers nervously, but not daring to say anything. There was a sense of unease. "Hizashi, where is Izuku?" Finally, the man passed him something. His yellow goggles. The record function. It was on, Hizashi explained, but he looked like he was about to cry. He sprung up from his seat to leave the room, but stopped for a moment to say one thing. "Izuku. Quirk name. Equal exchange." Aizawa didn't know why, but it felt like a lump was stuck in his throat, slowly choking him. "I love you, Dad." He tapped the little button on the goggles and a little hologram showed up. It felt like all of the air was forced out of his lungs. There he was, clinging to Aizawa's body like a little kicked puppy. He was bleeding, shivering out in the cold air, but he still held on to him. The bedsheets were wet, and he didn't know when his tears began to fall. His hands trembled, and the goggles fell to the floor with a thud. Worried, Hizashi ran into the room, asking him something, but Aizawa couldn't hear anything. He clasped his hands over his mouth tightly, sobbing with his head on his knees. A child no older than 16, knowing that he's going to die, but he still saved Aizawa. He was bleeding out, dying, but he still clung to Shota like a little child, worrying about him. He wasn't even his kid. Not even his kid. But he was a father to him. He lost his kid. His problem child. He never believed in deities or angels, but if they ever existed, Izuku was the best thing they had gifted the world. A lovely kid with pure and innocent love. He took that away. He killed his kid. The weather was nice. The skies were clear. Izuku would have liked it. Each month, Shota would visit the Aizawa family grave, leaving a bouquet of lilies, sitting and talking for a while, drinking a cup of coffee, even if it would never taste the same. "How are you, Izuku?" he asked, but there was no answer. Here lies Izuku Aizawa, the kindest child the world has ever seen, who left the world far too young.